Hi. Today I'd like to talk to you about the idea of seeking the best for others as a way of driving economic momentum with love as a basis. As business leaders, one of the core functions that we fulfill in society is to make money. As Christian business leaders, there's, however, for us a higher calling than only making money, and that's to seek first God's kingdom. Putting these two together means that we have a role to fulfill, which is to make money within the context of always putting God's kingdom first and above everything else, which means also putting the seeking of God's kingdom above making money. A kingdom is a domain over which a king reigns, and one of the characteristics of a kingdom is typically that it has laws which people must abide by. God's kingdom is no different, and if you read through the Bible, you find many laws and principles and rules. However, on two different occasions, Jesus gave us a summary, as it were, of the basis on which all the laws and everything that the prophets had said through the ages rest. In Matthew 7 verse 12, Jesus said, "So, whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets." In Matthew 22 verse 35, we see that a lawyer came and asked Jesus a question to test him, and he said, "Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law?" And Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and all your mind. This is the great and the first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." And then Jesus says, on these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. It stands to reason then that seeking God's kingdom would mean living in a way that is aligned with these statements. But how does that align with making money? To understand that, let's first go back to just understanding what money really is. To do that, let's create a tiny imaginary economy. Imagine you're a farmer and you have cows. You cannot eat a whole cow at a time, and you would like to eat your cow with some bread. You also need some clothes and maybe a few other things. So you cut one cow into steaks, you go to town and you start exchanging. 2 steaks for a loaf of bread, 10 steaks for a pair of shoes, 3 steaks for a new pan, etc., etc. The problem here is that the baker may not want steak today, which would mean that you cannot get bread. So instead of giving the baker his 2 steaks today, you go to the baker and give him a note that says you will give him 2 steaks in the future, and in exchange for the piece of paper, he gives you a loaf of bread today. In the course of a few days, because you eat bread every day and the baker doesn't eat so much steak, the baker ends up maybe with 5 of those slips of paper, which he can now take to the shoemaker and exchange for a pair of shoes, which means that the shoemaker can bring you those pieces of paper and you'll give the shoemaker the steaks. Now that's how money started. People used shells, bits of gold, jewels, and all sorts of other mechanisms to present a promise of payment. As long as the society agreed more or less on the value of the unit of exchange, it could work. Today, we use money. The important thing to notice here is that for money to be made, there needs to be an understanding of the needs of others, a willingness to do work to fulfill those needs, and a sense of honesty and reasonableness about the value of the effort that has gone into fulfilling that need. You will notice that none of this requires money in the way that we normally understand it. If you are looking around you, identifying real needs and beginning to meet those, and if everyone around you are doing the same, it will drive the activity that is the underpinning source of value and therefore money and economic growth in an economy. Connecting this back to the basic laws of God's kingdom, we can see that doing to others as we would have them do to us, or loving others as we love ourselves, is the foundation for this activity. In the book of Proverbs, we see this further supported with these 2 verses. Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. The people curse him who holds back grain, but a blessing is on the head of him who sells it. So when Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you," it may seem as if he was making a promise. But it seems to me that he was possibly not so much making a promise as simply stating a fact based on the logic of cause and effect of living out the fundamental laws of his kingdom. We are facing some real tough challenges in our nation and in our economy. But the best way to keep the momentum we have And to regain momentum as we go forward is to ask God to show us where and how we can serve others, get paid for it either in cash or in promise, and create opportunities for others to serve us and get paid for their services in cash or in promise. And then finally, never lose focus of the first and the greatest command, because from Him flows all that we have and all that we are. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. May God be with you and bless you richly with wisdom, insight, and the closeness of His peace and presence in this time. Thank you.